Hey teachers, I just wanted to add something before I wrap this video up. And actually, I'm going to put this at the beginning of the video, so I guess it's kind of a preface. Through the video, I talk about the crisis cycle, and there's points in the crisis cycle where things can be turned around, where the student can bounce back. And then there's a point where they're actually in full crisis. And I wanted to make sure that you guys understand, and I didn't clarify this in the video, that if a student is in like a full-on crisis where they are not in control, they are out of self-control, there is no expectation for you as a teacher to handle that on your own. Make sure that if a student is in crisis, that you're getting some help, that you're not responsible for de-escalating that student all by yourself, because de-escalation takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of time, and you can't do that while you're teaching usually. So I just, before, as you can see, I have kind of shut down my day. It's 9:39 on Tuesday night, and I've already gotten ready for bed, and I really wanted to make sure that this was clarified in this video, that you are not responsible for de-escalating a student in crisis. But if a student is in crisis in your class, you do need to get in touch with someone to come help with that, which I know you all would. You guys are all really great about it. I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, I wanted to just say thank you to my district supervisor, Jerry Trelease, who so kindly shared his slides with me on crisis response. And a lot of this presentation is just his presentation cut up and with a little bit of a Victoria spin. So enjoy the show.
Hello teachers. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to participate in this presentation. The information we're covering today is highly condensed. I could probably do 10 trainings on the topics we'll touch on today, but my goal is to introduce you to some of the foundational principles of crisis response and emotional support. My hope is that after you have participated in this presentation, you'll have a better understanding of how we may react or respond to needs, triggers, and the phases of the crisis cycle. I'll also discuss specific responses you can take during each phase of the crisis cycle. To begin, let's start with reacting versus responding to needs. When I have a need that's not being met, I can react to that need or respond. Responding is a thoughtful approach to the problem. If I have a need, I think of how to meet that need and execute my plan. Here's an example. Going to the bathroom is a basic need for everyone. I like using this example because everyone has had experiences with responding and reacting to the need to go to the bathroom. At the beginning of this process, you get a signal from your body to your brain that's like, hey, it's time to go to the bathroom. At this point, you're not in crisis and you can think it through. You think of a plan. It's not very complicated, but you're aware enough to execute that plan and deal with anything that may come up along the way. You may get up from your desk and start walking to the bathroom. You might see a friend in the hall and smile and say hello. You know you need to go to the bathroom, so you decide you won't stop for a full conversation, but you might be thinking of what you'll say later. In this scenario, you are responding to your biological need and thinking through what's going on in the world around you. You are in control. Now let's look at reacting. Reacting is reflexive and not necessarily conscious. So back to our bathroom scenario. My guess is that at some point in life, everyone has experienced what it's like to need to go to the bathroom really bad. When you need to go to the bathroom really bad, you had the alert from your body saying, hey, it's time to go to the bathroom, and that progressed to go to the bathroom now or you will never be able to look at any person in this building in the eye again because they will all know you peed your pants. At this point, you're focused on one thing and one thing only. You aren't thinking about the needs of others. You're only aware of your surroundings inasmuch as you are analyzing the quickest route to the bathroom. On the way, a team of monkeys could be dancing to Elvis Presley's greatest hits, and you are completely unaware. You're only thinking about how to get to the bathroom as quickly as possible. Now, what do bathroom emergencies have to do with emotional crises? Well, the bathroom emergency begins with a need and escalates because that need has not been met. So let's talk about needs. You may be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom, the needs are based on survival. They're physiological and safety needs such as food, water, clothing, shelter, a place to go to the bathroom, and security. Now look at these higher needs. When the basic needs are not met, it's very difficult to obtain any of the higher needs. The first two levels of this hierarchy represent basic needs we can't live without. To help facilitate our survival, our brain has tied these needs to emotions. One emotion in particular comes up a lot when we talk about unmet needs. That's anxiety. When we experience anxiety, our brain floods our body with adrenaline and cortisol in preparation for a reaction. It's the same biological reaction an antelope has when it sees a lion on the prowl, or a deer has when it sees two bright headlights racing toward it. This is the chemical response that prepares our bodies to run, fight, or freeze. So we have a trigger. For the antelope, it's a lion. For the deer, it's headlights. For humans, it could be a lot of things, but ultimately, the trigger represents a need that is disrupted or not being met. Sometimes it's difficult to pin down what the trigger is because it's internal. Internal triggers might include thoughts, grief, pain, illness, chemical dependency, mental illness. External triggers might include the size of the room, noises, smells, lights, weather, the behavior of others. A crisis may come on very quickly after a trigger, or we can have a delayed reaction. Sometimes we can be triggered by something neutral that reminds us of a previous trauma or stressor. In these moments, we may not know why we're having an emotional reaction. Triggers are essentially the starting off point for the crisis cycle. Let's look at the crisis cycle overall, and then we can come back to each phase and talk about what you can do. I like to think of the crisis cycle as a roller coaster. I mean, look at that. It even looks like a roller coaster. There comes a point on every roller coaster where the car has left the station and you can't turn back. You just have to ride it out. As you can see here, we go from trigger to escalation, then into the crisis phase, which includes some ups and downs, then down into de-escalation, stabilization, post-crisis, and then back to baseline. So let's talk about each phase and how you can respond. Baseline is easy. This is phase 0. If a student is at baseline, great, keep doing what you're doing. Phase 1 is the trigger or stimulation phase. Remember that list of triggers I mentioned before? This is where they get the ball rolling. In my roller coaster analogy, our friend has left the main path at the amusement park and is heading toward the ticket taker for the roller coaster. In reality, you may have noticed the trigger if it was external, or you may notice that there's something different about the student. Their attention or mood has changed from the baseline phase. One of the keys to effective emotional support and crisis response is building a solid relationship. This phase is where a good relationship is especially helpful. The better you know your students, the better you'll know when they are no longer in baseline. The response is to remove the trigger or stimulus. What happens if you can't remove it? If you can't remove the trigger, you're likely to see the student move into the escalation phase. For example, if the trigger is a test, we may not be able to remove the trigger. At this point, you may see signs of increased agitation, moving around in their seat, fidgeting, rocking, withdrawal behaviors like putting their head down on the desk, avoidant behaviors like getting out of their seat. In these situations, it helps to reassure the student and remind them of your expectations. In our testing example, the student's expectation might be perfection. They may think, if I don't do this perfectly, then I am not smart and my teacher will know it. It's helpful for them to hear, even if you make a mistake, I'll still think you're smart. When we think of escalating behaviors, a lot of times we think of externalizing behaviors like physical or verbal aggression. In these situations, stating the expectation sounds more like this. In this classroom, we keep our hands, feet, and other objects to ourselves. We deal with a lot of internalizing behaviors. Establishing expectations for internalizing behaviors often looks very different. It may be that you're reminding your students that it's okay to be imperfect. Making mistakes is part of the learning process. This escalation phase is our last chance to divert the crisis. It's the point where they've gotten into the roller coaster car and you can see them settling into their seat. This is our last chance to show them there's a better way to solve the problem. If you don't feel like you're getting through to them, but they're still aware enough to listen to somebody, get help. You don't have to do this alone. If you can stall them from losing control until you can get some backup, stall them. This might look like walking them down to the counseling center or my office. If the trigger is something that you can't completely remove, you might be able to temporarily remove it. Give them a reprieve while you get assistance from someone else. When the roller coaster leaves the station, that means our efforts at phase 1 and 2 were not effective. The trigger is unresolved and the student is no longer in control of their behavior. Look at the possible symptoms here. Have you ever experienced a crisis like this? Have you ever experienced what it's like to be overwhelmed by emotion to the point that you are out of self-control? Think back to the bathroom emergency scenario I posed before. In this scenario, a need is not being met, and I am using every ounce of self-control I have to prevent a disaster. I don't have any energy for communication or concerns for others. I am desperate to have my need met. In our students, that need may be to feel safe and secure. They may feel like a mistake is the difference between being loved and being hated. They may be experiencing too much stimulation from their environment and they need a calm, quiet place. Whatever is driving this crisis has taken control of the situation. At this point, the roller coaster has left the station, and even if they realize they don't want to be on it, they're on it, and it's going. I know this has happened to me on an actual roller coaster. I got on thinking, this is a good idea, and then about 10 seconds in, I was like, no, I changed my mind, I don't want to be on this roller coaster, but I'm on it, and I have to ride it. The best thing to do in that situation is to remind myself that it will eventually end and I just have to hold on. When a student is in crisis, they may be fighting a battle inside to regain control. They may desperately want to be behaving differently. They may be aware that they're crying in front of their peers or doing something inappropriate and wish that they could stop. But as I said, the roller coaster has left the station. At this point, you have to ride it out. This is especially hard for you as a teacher and for parents and other bystanders that want to help. The best response to the crisis phase is to provide the least amount of interaction necessary for safety. This is very difficult to do if your instinct is to try and fix things. If that child was on an actual roller coaster, it would be dangerous and ineffective to try and get them off. Can you think of a time when you were in crisis and someone said, "Calm down"? They're trying to get you off the roller coaster. It may be good intentioned, but telling someone in a crisis to calm down is like gasoline on a fire. It's also important to be constantly checking in with your own emotions. Watching someone go through a crisis can inadvertently trigger your own crisis. That's why each of the slides so far has said stay calm, de-escalate, and manage yourself. If you're getting escalated, get help. When the student begins to de-escalate, they need a chance to cool off. This is a time where adults are tempted to start solving the problem and analyzing what just happened. The person in crisis is simply not ready for this yet. When you're descending on a roller coaster, your heart rate is still rapid. You're trying to get your bearings and figure out which way is up. If I don't know which way is up yet, I certainly can't explain why I was just crying so hard. This phase takes time. When I'm in this phase with students, I'm trying to give them something very simple to focus on. I might tell them a calming story or show them a distracting YouTube video. I'm modeling slow, deep breaths, and my body language says I am very comfortable. This actually may be very uncomfortable, but I'm making sure that I'm showing the student which way is up, which way is calm. A structured cooling off may be a mindless activity like coloring or listening to music. Give them time and options. As they move into the stabilization phase, you'll see them move back toward baseline. Give them a chance to talk if they want to. If you say anything at this point, it should be validating and normalizing. This means ensuring the student knows their feelings are valid and that you still care about them. You can let them know that everybody cries sometimes. There should be no judgment or correction happening here. Only offer advice if they ask for it. This is a time for active listening. They may even reveal what the trigger was without realizing it. Your goal here is making sure they know you care about them and your relationship has not been damaged by their crisis. Sometimes we can share personal stories to help validate their experience. Be careful that you aren't going into too much detail or making it about you. Again, check with yourself. If you're reacting to your emotions instead of responding to theirs, it's time to get someone else involved. All through this process, you should be aware of your own feelings. Everything leading up to this point is exhausting. So the last phase before returning to baseline is the post-crisis drain. During post-crisis phase, they need to rest and recharge their batteries for a bit. Here, you are just observing and supporting if necessary. They may need water or a snack. Think back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Did they just create a new need by chasing down another? Check in with yourself. This process is emotionally draining for the person helping too. Do you need a break? Do you need to go cry yourself? It's okay to have your own feelings about what just happened. If you need to react, make sure you're not re-escalating the person who is just in crisis by reacting in front of them. Lastly, if you have a student who goes through this process, it's important to let their parents know. If you're not comfortable having this conversation with their parents, please ask for help. I would be happy to help you make that call. I hope this has been a helpful introduction to the crisis cycle. If you have any questions, please come by my office and chat, or send me an email.